Department calls Amy Bailey as its witness.
All right, I'm going to turn my camera off for just a second to answer a text message, but I'm listening.
Your Honor, we'll give you a couple of minutes.
That's fine. I can hear. I'm just going to sit here and answer it. I just don't want you to think I'm not paying attention. So, all right, Ms. Bailey, if you would please raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
All right, thank you. Ms. Gutierrez, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Amy, who do you work for?
The Texas Department of Family and Protective Services.
And what do you do for them?
I'm an investigator.
And were you assigned to the children Jolise King and Jonathan McClendon?
Yes.
Okay, and who is their mother?
Alyssa Lopez.
And who is their father?
Jonathan McClendon.
What is the date that the intake came in?
December 13th, 2023.
And did you have, I'm sorry?
Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't an objection, Your Honor. I'll continue. Amy, did you have prior contact with the McClendon Lopez family?
Yes, I did.
And was that in the summer of 2023?
Yes.
And very briefly, what did that investigation involve?
That investigation was due to the police being called out due to an incident of possible domestic violence, but it was a fight between some young male individuals and a neighbor.
Okay, but it sounds like that intake led you to the home of Mr. McClendon. Is that correct?
Correct.
And so did you have an opportunity to view the children, Jolise King and Jonathan, in the summer?
I did.
And so you know what they look like, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so when did this most recent intake come in?
December 13th, 2023.
And what were the intake allegations?
That the children were left home alone unsupervised, and that 2 of the children were in the street.
And based on that intake, did you immediately travel to the residence of Jonathan McClendon?
Yes.
And was that on Royce?
Yes.
And did you interview Miss Elisa Lopez?
I did.
And what did she state about the allegations?
She stated that she and Mr. McClendon had got into a domestic violence incident, that he had grabbed her by her jacket and swung her around. And so to keep it from escalating, she had left the residence.
Okay. Did she indicate that she had received a call from law enforcement as well about her children being left alone?
Yes.
And did she state that she had been trying to get back to the house?
Yes.
Did she make additional statements about any domestic violence by Jonathan McClendon against her?
Yes.
What did she state?
She stated that approximately a week before, that he had broke her hand by slamming it in a door.
And did you observe her hand to be injured?
Yes.
And what did she next state about having moved back into the home with Mr. McClendon?
She stated that Mr. McClendon was not residing in the home, that he was residing with a girlfriend, and that she and the children had moved back into the home.
Okay. Now, when you arrived on the scene, did you see the 3 children there?
Not at that point.
Okay. At what point did you have a chance to see the children?
After I spoke to Mr. McClendon and Miss Lopez, I was taken to the home where the children were located.
And did you recognize the children from the case before?
Yes.
And were they Jolise King and Jonathan?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you attempted to speak to Mr. McClendon, did he decline?
He declined to review any paperwork from the department, but he did briefly make a statement about what occurred that night.
Okay. Now, in speaking with Miss Lopez, did you speak with her about any possible family placement for the children?
I did.
And was that an attempt by the department to evaluate the case for a safety plan with a parent-child safety placement?
Yes.
And a parent-child safety placement, is that where the children are placed in a different home from the parents?
Yes.
And at that time, were there no appropriate relatives available for such a placement?
Correct.
In addition to that, did the department determine that that type of placement would not mitigate the dangers being presented to the children?
Yes.
And in your investigation, did you confirm the intake allegations that the children were indeed left alone?
Yes.
Now, based on the facts and all the testimony today, did you believe that there was an immediate danger to the physical health or safety of the children?
Yes.
And would a kickout order or an order for one of the parents to leave the home have alleviated the department's concerns?
No, because the allegations were against both parents.
Okay. And to summarize, the allegations were both for domestic violence and neglect and the children being left alone. Is that correct?
Correct.
Were you present for the ex parte hearing in this case?
Yes.
And at that ex parte hearing, did Ms. Lopez state that she knowingly left the children alone in the home on her own?
She did. She stated that she believed that Mr. McClendon was home, but that she should have taken that responsibility to go look before she left.
Okay. But does that clear up the concern that the department has with the family?
No.
Do you also believe that the domestic violence that each parent, or rather the domestic violence testimony on each parent presents a risk and danger to the children?
Yes.
What reasonable efforts did the department make to avoid removal?
I asked for if there was a viable person that could supervise or that the kids could be placed with. The person that Ms. Lopez provided was not approved.
In addition to that, was there a prior order to participate?
Yes.
Okay. And reasonable efforts since removal, does that include facilitating visitation for the parents with the children?
Yes.
Does it also include continuing to attempt to engage the parents?
Yes.
Are we asking that both parents' hair follicle and urinalysis drug screen?
Yes.
Okay. And where are the children currently placed?
Jolise is in an emergency shelter here in Amarillo. King and Jonathan are in separate foster homes in Lubbock.
Is there a pending home study?
Yes, ma'am.
And who is that on?
Mr. McClendon's aunt, Peggy Newman.
What is the status of that home study right now?
The last that I was informed was that they were having the meeting with Miss Newman on, I believe it was January 5th. But as to my knowledge, there has not been anything received, a completed home study at this time.
Are we asking the court to order separate visits for Mr. McClendon and Ms. Lopez?
Yes.
Is that due to the evidence of violence by each one of them?
Yes.
Pass the witness.
All right, thank you. Ms. Bailey, you said that on this date in question, on the 13th of December, that Mr. McClendon refused to sign paperwork, but he did make a statement concerning the allegations. What was his statement?
He stated that he was in the back bedroom and Alyssa had come in there and started assaulting him. So he left that bedroom, went into another bedroom, and ultimately ended up climbing out of the bedroom window to get out of the house to keep things from escalating.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, Ms. Kincaid, questions?
Thank you, Your Honor. On the night, December the 13th, did you go over the removal paperwork with Ms. Lopez?
Not that night, not at the
Okay.
scene.
Okay. Did you go over the parents' rights forms with her?
I did,
Okay. Did she express an understanding of those forms?
yes,
Okay. And was she cooperative in speaking with you that evening?
yes.
Okay. And you may have testified to this already, but did you observe any injuries on her?
I observed her hand that appeared to have injuries.
Okay. And what was her demeanor? Was she calm, upset?
She was upset.
Okay. And was she able to communicate with you that night what her version of the story was?
Yes,
Okay. And on that night, did she report to you anybody besides her brother that could supervise or take care of the children?
no, not initially. When after I spoke to Mr. McClendon and Miss Lopez, and explained to them that the decision had been made to remove the children, that is when Mr. McClendon asked me to look at his aunt that did not have a phone number, but gave me his mother's phone number as someone I could contact to get the aunt's phone number.
Okay. And did you reach out to Mr. McClendon's mom?
Not that night.
Okay. So it was later.
Yes, we did not leave the home until after 11:30 that night.
Okay. Thank you. I'll pass witness.
All right, Mr. McClendon, questions for Ms. Bailey?
Miss Bailey, isn't it true that Alyssa was told that she would be signing the receiving of the rights form so that her children would not be leaving, so that nothing would happen with her children in replacement?
No, sir.
Okay. Has she recounted the events of the night for you since that night?
She did.
Might I ask what changes she made to those statements?
Yes, 2 days later, she told me that she had been drinking and that she had left the home. She assumed that you were in the home and that she did not go verify that before she left.
Did she tell you that night why she knew I was gone? Did she give you a specific reason?
On the 13th,
Mhm.
that you had assaulted her, grabbed her by the collar, was flinging her around the home,
Let
and that's why
me
she
let
left.
me let me reiterate that. On the night, the day in question, 2 days later, when she recounted these events, did she give you a specific reason as to why she knew I wasn't home when she left those children alone?
Objection, Your Honor. I think that's facts, not in evidence.
Sustained.
She, the way she presented it was that she did not know for a fact that you were not in the home. She assumed that you were in the home and she did not go check to verify before she left.
Okay. The night of December 13th, according to your knowledge, after the police made contact with Alyssa and I, how long did it take you to arrive?
I do not know. I don't know what time y'all arrived.
Could we?
I know that when I arrived, Mr. Detective Hodges was speaking with you.
Do you know what time that was?
It was around 8:30.
Is that documented anywhere where we could see?
Your Honor, objection form?
I'm not sure I understood his question.
But is that documented anywhere that she showed up at 8:30?
That's a question. You can answer that, Miss Bailey.
I don't know that I documented the exact time that I arrived on scene.
I did. And I'm asking, is it not closer to 4 hours from the time I was contacted from the police till you showed up?
Objection, Your Honor. She's already testified. She doesn't know what time of police or law enforcement arrived.
Sustained.
At least wanted to pose it. Thank you for that opportunity. What actual evidence do you have other than the appearance of injuries that I am violent or domestically violent?
The numerous police call-outs, police reports, the allegations that Alyssa has made in the past.
Okay. To your knowledge, do either of the parties, Alyssa or I, have any charges resulting from these claims?
Between the two of you,
Yes, ma'am.
I believe Alyssa does.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. In your professional opinion, never mind, I won't ask that question. I'll strike that myself. Did she has she a third time recounted her story to you, reclarifying certain untruths that she told in the statement that night? Specifically after our first meeting? With the kids?
I'm not sure what you're.
Okay, I'll reform. After our first visitation with the kids, did Alyssa call you and recount her story again from that night, reclarifying untruths that she told?
Objection, compound question.
Sustained. Yeah. Miss Bailey, has she contacted you again about what went on that night after the first visitation? I think that's where he's headed.
Okay, we have had conversations and she reiterated again that she was the one that left the children alone. That she believes that Mr. McClendon had left before she did, but she did not go check to make sure he was in the home before she left.
Did Alyssa tell you during this conversation that when I normally hide from her or the police, as was stated that night, that I always make myself known when she re-enters the home, and that's how she knew I was gone? Did she state that to you on that third call after our visitation with the children?
I do not recall that.
Okay. Did you ever ask me prior to the removal papers being discussed with me? Did you ever ask me of a viable placement for the children?
No, I did not.
Were you aware that one was on the scene that night?
No,
And Miss Amy, did you ever actually see the fact that the children were left at home alone?
I'm sorry. Can you state that again?
Did you ever actually see the fact that our children were left at home alone?
I did not. By the time I got there, the police were there.
Do you know where our children were at the time you got there?
No, I just knew that they were with a neighbor, but I didn't know which one.
Okay, did you know that what police officer did you speak with when you arrived?
It was Officer DeWitt.
Officer DeWitt. Okay, I hadn't heard his name spoken today at all. Did you speak with officers that witnessed my children at the neighbors before you arrived?
When I arrived, Officer DeWitt told me that Detective Hodges was speaking with you and that I could wait in my car until he was done with you and Alyssa.
So you never spoke with the officer the night that actually witnessed my children across the street at the neighbors before you arrived?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to form. He hasn't identified what officer that would be.
I don't think he can. Amy, did you talk to any of the officers that said they saw the children at the neighbor's house?
I did not. I spoke to Detective Hodges once he was done speaking with
Okay.
the parents.
Okay, let's move on, Mr. McClendon.
Yes, sir. One said officer that we just spoke with just said that he saw the children next door at the neighbor's house. And I'd asked him if he actually saw them outside of my home before such. That's my line of questioning.
Well, that's
I
not a
want-
question. That's not a question.
I'm
There's
not
no
there
question.
yet.
There's no question in there.
I'm not there yet.
Well,
So
get
with
to
that
it.
being
Get
said,
to it.
Miss Amy, do you know that the officer, the only officer to had made a statement that he witnessed my children across the street at the neighbors, never saw them home alone?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to hearsay. He's not identified that officer, and it sounds like he's trying to backdoor hearsay in for a different officer.
Sustain.
So did you know that Officer Powell was the one that made contact with my children that night?
No, sir, I didn't know which officer made contact with the children.
Do you know which officer made a call to CPI investigations to report the matter?
Detective Hodges, from my knowledge.
Okay. Directly different from what was said. All right.
No sidebar comments, Mr. McClendon, or I'll cut you off.
Yes, sir. To your knowledge, was there anyone else on the scene that night when you arrived besides Alyssa, myself, and law enforcement?
I believe her brother was on scene.
Can I ask how you were sure of his relation to her?
Detective Hodges told me.
So Detective Hodges did not tell you that that was my brother that was on the scene.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to form.
I'm asking, was
Don't
he informed that it
interrupt,
was?
Mr. McClendon. Let me rule before you talk over me, please.
Yes, sir.
That's overruled. Now you can go ahead.
Amy, you can answer the question.
What was the question?
So Officer Hodges or Sergeant Hodges did not tell you that that individual was my brother on the scene that night.
No, it was my understanding it was Alyssa's brother that was in the black pickup.
So could this have been the confusion with there not being a viable placement found for the children that night?
Objection, speculation.
Sustain.
No,
Is that the reason you felt like there was no one there for the kids to be placed with because you were misinformed?
I possibly, but I went with the information that I had.
Okay, no further questions.
Mr. Ingram,
No questions.
anyone have follow-ups for Miss Bailey? We'll start with you, Miss Gutierrez.
Thank you, Your Honor. Miss Bailey, did Mr. McClendon refuse to speak with you during your visit to the home on that night?
Objection, asked and answered.
Overruled.
He spoke with me briefly.
And did he refuse to sign the 3010 form?
He did.
Objection, I don't know what the 3010 form is.
That's a good objection. He doesn't know what that is.
I can ask her to explain. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right.
Bailey, can you explain what the 3010 form is?
It is the notification of rights. And I tried to go over that form with him, explaining that he had the right to obtain an attorney prior to speaking to me. He had the right to record our conversation. I asked him to look over it. He told me he was not going to look at any paperwork from the department and he was not going to sign anything, that he wanted to talk about what occurred that night.
Okay. Ask the witness.
Ms. Kincaid, follow-up questions?
No questions, Your Honor.
Mr. McClendon, any follow-up questions?
Yes, Miss Amy, well, is it not true that night I read what actually occurred is that I read the first 3 rights to you and stated those as a reason for not signing the paperwork or continuing the conversation?
You said that you did not want to review any paperwork and you were not going to sign anything for the department.
I'll reiterate. Was it?
Question asked and answered.
That's asked and answered. You move on, Mr. McClendon.
All right, let me figure out how to ask this one then. Did I read the first three rights to you that night when you handed me the paper?
No, you did not.
Did I give you any reason at all for saying that I was not going to sign the paperwork for the department?
You said that you knew your rights and you did not want to sign anything for the department.
Okay, no further questions.
All right, any follow-ups, Mr. Ingram? Hello?
No questions.
Okay. All right, then. If there's nothing further, then Ms. Gutierrez, do you have any other witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor, the department calls Nurti Angraini.
All right, Ms. Angraini, and I apologize, I probably just butchered your name. If you could, please unmute.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. If you could spell your first and last name for us to be sure we have it correct.
My first name is Nurti and my last name is Angraini.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's just as we have you. Okay, that's good enough.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. All right, if you would, ma'am, please raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
All right, thank you. Ms. Gutierrez?
Thank you, Your Honor. Nurti, you supervised a visit for the parents and the children on December 27th, 2023. Is that correct?
Yes, correct me.
And following that visit, did you have a conversation with 4-year-old Jolise?
Yes, prior to the on the way to Lubbock. Yes.
And did he make a statement of or an outcry of abuse or neglect?
Yes.
What did he state?
He said we were scared. We were alone. We were out on the street yelling on the street, and we are hungry. Is what he said.
And additionally, did he make any statements regarding his father's treatment of his mother?
Yes.
What did he state?
He said my father is strong, and he beat up my mom. That's what he said.
Pass the witness.
Ms. Kincaid?
No questions, Your Honor.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes, Ms. Nurti, do you have any audio documentation of said comment from Jolise?
No. No.
Do you have any video corroboration of said comment from Jolise?
No.
Do you have any report incident documented with your superiors of said comment from Jolise?
Yes. I report to my supervisor for that.
Okay. Is there at a future time a date I might be privileged to such documentation?
She can't answer that. That's a legal question.
Ms. Nurti, will you provide me with a copy of that documentation?
She can't answer that. That's a legal question. That's for the court to decide, not her.
I'm sorry, Judge. I was under the impression that was public knowledge. I'm sorry.
Well, that's why I stressed before. Excuse me. That's why I stressed before, and I'll stress again, you might want to consider applying for a court-appointed attorney because I can't give you legal advice.
Yes, sir, Judge. I'm just doing my apprenticeship right now. I'll probably take the bar at some point, but I'm trying. I apologize. Are there any other concerns or issues that you have with the said treatment of my child, Jolise?
You mean in the placement?
Period.
Your Honor,
Sorry,
I'm going to object and ask that he be more specific with that question.
Are there any of your own personal specific concerns that you have toward his safety in the treatment and his treatment by me?
I don't understand. I'm so sorry.
Are you concerned for his safety on my part?
Oh, yes.
And how specifically?
For this, according to his statement that he was scared of you and he said that you beat him up. you beat his mom. That's what my concern.
Did he ever say I hit him?
He said that, yes.
And you documented that as well?
Yes.
Okay. No further questions.
All right, Mr. Ingram.
No questions.
Ms. Kincaid, did I skip you again?
I don't, you may have skipped me, but I do have a couple of questions in any event.
Okay, go ahead.
Since the removal, has Miss Lopez been getting her visitations?
Yes, ma'am.
Has she indicated a willingness to you to work services?
Oh, yes.
And
Yeah.
has she reported to you that she's working on employment and some other things as we speak?
Yes, she reported to me that she got a job at Amazon starting on the 24th of this month.
Okay.
Yes.
And so does it seem to you, I know this case is new, but does it seem to you like Miss Lopez is willing to do whatever it takes to demonstrate to the department that she can alleviate the reasons for removal?
She was willing, yes, to do services. Correct.
Okay, thank you. I'll pass witness.
Okay, anyone else have further questions for this witness?
Do you have
Yes,
a couple of questions?
One
Oh,
at a time.
I'm sorry. I don't know if it's my turn or Mr. McClendon's turn. Your
Go
Honor.
ahead, Ms. Gutierrez.
Thank you, Your Honor. Nurse, is St. Francis willing to provide transportation for Miss Lopez to visit her children?
Yes, ma'am. Right.
And to your knowledge, is Miss Lopez still residing with Mr. McClendon?
That's what I believe, that she is still with him.
Okay, and that if that's changed, then you wouldn't know it, correct?
Yes, I don't.
Okay, pass the witness.
All right, Ms. Kincaid, any follow-ups?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. McClendon, follow-ups?
Nerthy, does it seem to you that I am willing to do whatever it takes to alleviate the concerns for removal?
You did not, as far as I understand about you, Mr. McClendon, you kind of denied what I'm trying to explain to you about the paperwork and all that. And
But I denied. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, you just did not want to sign the paperwork, and and you think that I cannot explain to you what you want to know about stuff, and you think that you are not willing to work on services because you think that it was all a lie.
Have I expressed this to you that I am unwilling to work services?
Yes.
When did I express this to you?
When we had a meeting that we're not supposed to have, because I was having a meeting with Alisa, Miss Lopez, but you showed up anyway.
So I told you at that. Oh yeah, I can't ask that again. So I didn't tell you that I was willing to work services in that meeting under recording.
Yeah, you're not. You did not. You said you wanted to if I have to, but I don't want it to right now. 40% rock and roll. But you're not showing that you're willing to.
Have I not made several calls to you requesting referrals for parenting classes and anger management?
No, sir. You said that I don't have an obligation to answer your text message and call.
Okay, this is gonna get to. I hope not seem too petty, Judge, but did I not say to you that I didn't have an obligation to cull your personal concerns for me, only to work through the court?
You didn't. You said you did not have an obligation to reply on what we need to work on.
Oh, that wasn't my question. Did I not inform you that?
No, she's answered your question. Move on.
That wasn't my question.
All right. One more sidebar remark, Mr. McClendon. I am getting tired of having to admonish you. I've had just about all I can take.
Do you have any audio documentation that would prove your claims that I said I would not work services because I had to explain, or I would not elect to explain things to me?
No, I don't, but I'm under oath and I remember what you said to
That
me.
ma'am, let's just answer the question, yes and no, when you can.
No, ma'am. No, sir.
Do you have any video documentation of our meeting that day at all?
No.
Okay, no further questions.
Mr. Ingram.
No questions.
All right, then, can she be excused, Ms. Gutierrez?
Yes, Your Honor, she can be excused.
All right. Ma'am,
Thank
thank you for your testimony. I'll release you so you can go about what's left of your afternoon.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Gutierrez, any other witnesses?
No other witnesses, Your Honor. The department rests, but I reserve making some requests in closing.
Okay. All right, Ms. Kincaid, witnesses.
Your Honor, I'll try my very best to keep it brief. I'd like to call Ms. Lopez.
Okay. Ms. Lopez, if you'd unmute, please. Thank you, ma'am. If you'd raise your right hand, do you swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Ms. Kincaid.
All right. Thank you, Your Honor. At the beginning of this hearing, I know it was some time ago, there was an inquiry as to Native American status. Can you explain to the court any Native American heritage or status that you believe the children have?
Apache and Comanche.
Okay. Do you know of any actual tribes that the children are members of?
I do not. I've been trying to get that information from my mother, but that has been something else.
Okay. Are you yourself a member of a tribe?
No, but I am trying to see how I can go about on getting a DNA test to prove otherwise.
Okay, so we'll move along from that. There's been some testimony that I think you may have heard that says that you and Mr. McClendon are still living together. Did you hear that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, are you two residing in the same house now?
No, I stay back at my apartment where I originally left from to go back to that address due to a shooting that happened.
Okay, so you had an apartment whenever you and Mr. McClendon split up, okay, right?
I still have, well, no, from the last previous case that was opened up on us, it was deemed by the judge that if this was going to be an ongoing occurrence with the domestic violence, it would be in the best kids' interest for us to split up. So while they were in Chicago, I
Okay,
had gotten
just
an apartment.
hang on. I'll get us where we need to go if you'll just answer the questions that I ask you, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so this summer you got a separate apartment whenever you and Mr. McClendon separated, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and while you were residing at that apartment, there was a shooting that happened outside of that apartment, is that correct?
Well, they shot at my apartment.
Okay, so
but it had nothing to do with me.
All right, now, ma'am, I want to just let's start off on the right foot. Please just answer the question you're asked. Don't keep embellishing because that messes it up. We can't hear each other talking over each other. So I'm not getting on you, but it'll make it go easier for all these lawyers if y'all don't talk over each other.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Lopez, if you'll let me, I'll get the answers to the court and to the other parties if you'll just answer the questions that I ask you, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
And I understand you're nervous. All right, so there was a shooting outside of your apartment.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I hate to interrupt. I've got to take this call real quick.
I think we're all back, Judge.
Okay. All right. Then, Ms. Kincaid, you can continue.
Thank you. So after the shooting, you were concerned for your safety and your children's safety. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you had a discussion with Mr. McClendon, and he agreed to allow you to stay at his house while you figured out your next steps and what you needed to do to make sure you and the kids were safe. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And in addition to the shooting, there were windows knocked out of the apartment. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so at the time, you thought the safest thing for you to do would be to move into the house with Mr. McClendon. Is that correct?
No, Mr. McClendon was not living there.
Okay. And where was he staying at the time?
With whoever he was claiming he was staying with.
Okay. And I think the night of the incident has been gone over enough times that we don't need to do that. But since this case has been opened and is pending, you have gotten employment. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you've stayed in contact with your caseworker, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you have been very diligent in asking to begin working your services, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. I also went and got a mental evaluation done.
Okay. And so you are ready, willing, and able to do anything and everything you can to get the kiddos back to you as soon as possible. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And there's something that you wanted to explain to the judge, and I know it's delicate for you to discuss, but you yourself were a part of the foster care system. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And that is something that has been traumatic for you. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And as a result of that, you have some really deep concerns about your children being placed in foster care. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And this court, and I'm sure everyone here is aware that there has been a recent arrest of a member of St. Francis. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you want to be sure that your children are not potentially subject to any kind of victimization while they're in foster care. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so you're hoping that the children be placed with Miss Peggy Newman. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And that is your wish. You're in agreement with the pending home study that she would be an appropriate placement for them.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Gutierrez?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Lopez, do you agree to provide your new address to Nursey?
Yes, she already has my apartment address.
Okay, so that's right. You testified just now that it's the same apartment as before. Okay. And do you agree to provide the results of your mental evaluation to Nursey?
Yes, my lawyer also has a copy of it.
Who was that evaluation done by?
TPC.
And do you know what type of evaluation it was?
Psychiatric or psychological.
Okay, so is it fair to say you're not entirely sure what type of eval it was?
All I know was I called and asked for a mental evaluation. The doctor called me back and I had my evaluation with him. And he stated that I do not need, I was denied for any kind of craziness.
I'm going to object to hearsay to that portion of your answer.
Okay, I think
Okay.
she's saying she's not exactly sure what it was. So obviously, Ms. Kincaid has a copy, so we can get to the bottom of that.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll move on. Ms. Lopez, what is your relationship with Mr. McClendon?
As of our last case, really, we've been co-parenting and trying to work on us from different homes, but that's not working. So we've just been separated.
And I think there was testimony during the case that he referred to you as his wife. Are you guys indeed married?
No, ma'am, we're common law married.
Do you recall approximately when you guys became common law married?
No, but I know we were together February 18th of 2017.
Okay. Do you believe that you can get your children back on your own?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you believe that you can do that without Mr. McClendon's help?
Yes, ma'am.
And regarding your statements about Indian ancestry, what type of DNA test do you plan to take? Is it just like a commercial one, or is it specific to a tribe?
It's specific. I can actually send that over to my lawyer and she can send it over to y'all guys, but I have to pay for it in order for me to get that DNA test. So I was going to see if it can get court ordered.
When you say get it court ordered, do you mean for somebody else to pay for?
Yes, ma'am, as I'm just starting my employment with Amazon on the 24th of this month.
Now, do you understand that Indian heritage doesn't necessarily mean tribal membership?
No, I'm not understanding of that.
Okay. If you do become an Indian tribal member, will you inform your attorney immediately?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Now, Ms. Lopez, I'm sure it's been hard to hear some of the testimony that has happened today.
Yeah.
How did it feel to hear that Jolise had made those statements about Mr. McClendon hurting you?
It hurt me.
Pass the witness.
All right, Mr. McClendon, do you have questions for Ms. Lopez?
Yes, sir, I do.
And you tread lightly here, sir. This is not for you two to start arguing with each other, so just tread very lightly.
Yes, sir. You okay, Alyssa?
Yeah, I'm good.
You need me to give you a second before I go on?
No, I'm okay.
Alyssa, do you feel intimidated by me?
Not at all.
Will you be answering these questions today that I asked you on your own volition without any feelings of intimidation?
Yes.
Do you understand the severity of perjuring?
All right, look, that's.
Your Honor, she's been sworn.
I know she's been sworn, and you're just about to step over the line one more time, Mr. McClendon. You do not badger this woman in any respect.
Alyssa, I apologize if I offended you in any way. Do you feel like I'm overstepping my bounds by asking you that?
No.
Okay. With that being said, do you agree with the allegations of domestic violence and the implication they have on the placement of our children?
Your Honor,
No.
compound question.
That's clear enough. You can answer it if you choose to, Ms. Lopez.
No.
Do you feel that it is the safest course of action and of greatest importance for the kid's safety and well-being that you go about reunifying yourself with them without my help?
If that's what needs to be done, I mean, yeah.
Okay. Do you feel like I am willing to do whatever it takes to reunify myself with my kids?
Your
Objection.
Honor, speculation.
That calls for speculation. She can't decide what you're willing to do.
Have I expressed willingness to go along with family-based plans and services?
Yes, you have asked for referrals along with me.
Let's clarify, Mr. McClendon. We're way past family-based services. I understand what you're saying, that you're willing to work services, but we're beyond the family-based services case. It's now going to be under a court, not just by an agreement with family-based services. So just be sure we're clear on that.
Okay, sir. Alyssa, have I expressed, in your professional opinion, have I expressed willingness to do whatever the court will expect of me to reunify myself with the children?
Yes, because you
Objection,
kicked me out of your house.
she's not a professional of anything.
Overrule. Yeah, professional opinion. I agree with that, but she's answered the question.
So I can answer that?
I think you did already. It's just not a professional opinion because you haven't been qualified as an expert. Go ahead, move on.
Okay.
Mr.
Okay, Ms. Alyssa, according to what you expect from the person parenting or supervising your children, have I expressed willingness to do whatever it takes to reunify myself with the children?
Yes, after they were removed.
Do you feel like or are you saying that I have been unwilling to cooperate previous to the removal?
With the departments in, you were uncooperative, but you were maintaining to care for them on your own.
Okay. Were you do you remember December 27th, a meeting that we had with NERTI?
Yes.
Do you remember in that meeting? Let me ask that a different way. In that meeting, did I request services and referrals to do whatever it takes to reunify myself with the children?
Yes.
In that meeting, did I refuse to answer personal questions that were being posed as opposed to questions about our children's placement?
Can you say that again?
In that meeting, did I refuse to answer personal questions that were being posed as opposed to questions that dealt with our children's safety and placement?
Your Honor, I'm
Yes.
going to object to form. I don't feel like that question is very clear.
Well, it's compound question. Break it up. Ask about
Okay.
personal versus the children, and maybe she can answer that.
Do you remember me being asked personal questions that I refused to answer that day during the meeting with Nerty?
Yes.
Do you remember that I denied answering those personal questions as opposed to anything that had to do with the children?
Now, can you reiterate that one for me?
Okay, I'm saying, when I was asked those personal questions, did I refuse on the grounds that we were there to speak about the children's placement?
No.
Okay. All right. At any rate, in lieu of my answer to those personal questions, was I then refused referrals for services of any kind to just better myself for the children?
Yes.
Do you corroborate Jolice's statements that I'm stronger and beat up his mother?
Kind of.
Okay. Can I ask you to clarify? Kind of. That's
There has
it.
been some incidents that I have started where he's seen it, but he's not seeing me as the aggressor. So it has painted you to be a monster.
We're not gonna go that far.
You asked the question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I just don't want it. I didn't know if that was something we should lean over into what it looked like. I just wanted it to be clear.
Move
The
on.
facts of
Move on with more questions.
all right. So Alyssa, are you saying that I am the aggressor? Or are you leaving that neutral?
Objection, compound question.
Sustain.
Are you saying that I am the aggressor in those few instances you spoke of?
No.
Are you saying that you are the aggressor in those instances that you spoke of?
Your Honor, I'm going to object and request clarification. He's referring to those incidents you spoke of. However, I'm not clear what incidents they're speaking on.
The incidents okay, I'm sorry.
We've spoke about a lot of incidents today. So, Ms. Lopez, have you ever been physically aggressive to Mr. McClendon?
Yes, sir, I have.
Has Mr. McClendon ever been physically aggressive to you?
Yes, sir, he has. It goes
Okay,
both ways.
that kind of clears it up. Let's kind of move on, Mr. McClendon.
Oh my. I'm at a loss. Do you have in the event that my rights, possibly restored, do you have any do you have any problem with the children being in my custody?
Not at all, as long as I'm not around.
Why wouldn't you need to be around? Why don't you want yourself to be around while they're in my custody?
I feel as I need to get help on my anger towards men.
Okay. Okay, so that I've done put you through enough. No further questions.
All right, Mr. Ingram, questions?
No questions.
All right, Ms. Kincaid, follow up.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Ms. Gutierrez.
No questions for this witness.
Okay, all right then. All right, Ms. Kincaid, did you have any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor, rest.
All right, thank you. Mr. Ingram, do you have witnesses?
No witnesses.
All right, Mr. McClendon, do you have witnesses?
No, sir. No witnesses.
All right, is there anything else you want to tell me? You have the right to testify on your own behalf since you're not represented by an attorney.
Yes, sir.
Okay, if you raise your right hand, then please, sir. You swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay, now you can kind of without not just rambling, you can tell me anything you want to tell me that you haven't already told me today.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Today I want to testify to my own character. I want to say that willingly I am going to admit to the boisterous and both arrogant and aggravating demeanor that I have held in the past. But as I spoke with the court in our first hearing on the 15th, or in our last hearing, let's just say that I am totally respective of the views that have been shed light now that weren't then. As with any others, I've held certain resentments from misunderstandings of my childhood versus I also was a part of the system myself, CPS, went through Quest Hospital, the evaluations and everything else. So I am not going to sit here and act like any type of saint. What I will say is that I've done my greatest and I've given my full effort toward a rehabilitation of what I'm going to call manhood and responsibility. These are things that I did not receive, and this is not an excuse, but these are things that I did not receive as an upbringing. These are things I ran out into the world to try and find and build for myself, which is why I created my family. I want to say to the court that I respect every light that has been shed on my nature and my demeanor, my unwillingness to cooperate in previous times. And I want to say that is absolutely going to be different now. Afforded the opportunity, I am going to do each and every single thing it takes to reunify myself with my children. And I'm going to do each and everything it takes to rectify the turmoil that I've put my family through, especially Alyssa. With that being said, I would ask the court to please consider all of the concerns that I have made, both with you and Judge Gleason. And that's all I have to ask is that, you do this, you're way more equipped to handle this than I. If you would just take those things in consideration and, consider previous instances with me from now, I would very much appreciate it.
Okay, is that it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I appreciate your candor. I really do. All right, Ms. Gutierrez, do you have questions?
Yes, Your Honor. I have a couple more questions specific to ICWA for Mr. McClendon.
Okay.
Mr. McClendon, do you understand that DNA test does not necessarily mean tribal membership?
Yes, ma'am.
And have you applied to be a member of any tribe?
No, ma'am.
Do you have a tribal membership card specific to you? That was my question.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know how those things go. This is something that I've never had to consider before. It was only ever brought to my attention when my children were first investigated by CPS. So I've only just now started to look into where my tribal association actually is. I do know of the fact that I am a part of a tribe. I just don't know how to get you the information, where the card is, how to register for it, any of that.
And Mr. McClendon, can you explain to me how you know you're a member of a tribe?
Well, we had an incident with my cousin's child, my mother's sister's son, and same type of ordeal right here. We ended up relocating the child to a Navajo resort in New Mexico, where we found out of all of our affiliation with that resort. We're now in proceedings in court over some dues they owe us. That's how I know.
Okay, but you yourself have not applied for tribal membership, correct?
No, and I'm not privileged to the fact that whether my parents are or not.
Mr. McLennan, I will agree with you that it is complicated. So bear with me through these questions.
Yes, ma'am.
If you do become a member of a tribe, if you become a member of a tribe, would you please inform the court and your caseworker immediately? Can you agree to do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, I pass the witness.
All right, thank you. Ms. Kincaid, questions?
No questions, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Ingram.
No questions.
All right, then, Mr. McClendon, you've testified that you didn't have any other witnesses to call today, did you?
No, sir.
Okay, all right. Then
Your Honor, I apologize. Go ahead.
does everyone rest and close?
I do have one rebuttal witness, very briefly, Your Honor.
Okay,
And the department calls Venus Mincy as its witness.
all right, ma'am, if you'd raise your right hand, you swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Gutierrez.
Thank you, Your Honor. Venus, there was testimony today that at least one parent in this case requested to start working services prior to the adversary. Is that correct?
Correct.
And were you aware of that request?
I was.
Okay. And it was St. Francis's position for parents not to start working services until after the adversary hearing. Is that correct?
Correct. That is our normal procedure.
Can you please explain the reasoning behind that?
Sure. Well, the case is not technically with St. Francis until after the adversary hearing. So all point of contact would need to stay with the department. So if a family plan of service or anything like that is signed, then the point of contact becomes St. Francis. And so there's a little bit of issues with that. Also, since the case is not technically ours, we would need to look at ways how we would pay for services for our clients.
Okay, now that if the judge grants the department temporary managing conservatorship for that to continue, is St. Francis now prepared to help the family with determining what services should be done, setting up payment, and giving them contact information for those services?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Pass the witness.
All right. Ms. Kincaid,
No questions.
Mr. McClendon, any questions for Ms. Mincy?
No questions.
All right, Mr. Ingram.
No questions.
All right, let me just ask Ms. Mincy, if the court does grant the department's request and order drug testing, if the parents don't have transportation, is that something St. Francis can arrange?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Okay, then, Mr. Ingram, recommendations.
Your Honor, I believe it to be in the children's best interest that the department be named as temporary managing conservator, parents to be named as possessory conservators. For today, placement to remain as is. Children seem to be doing well in their placements. However, I do not like the fact that they're split into 3 separate placements. I know we're all on the same page, but I want to make sure this home study doesn't fall between the cracks, and that if it passes, we get these kids back together as soon as possible.
All right. I may be late, but I'll just make that part of my ruling. Okay, then, based on the evidence I've heard today, I am going to continue the department as temporary managing conservator, continue the current placements. At this late date, I don't know how far this home study is. And let me just be sure, Ms. Lopez, if you'd unmute.
Yes, sir.
We were talking about the home study being on a paternal, I guess it'd be a great aunt to the children. And then all of a sudden the name was mentioned. Is this home study that's ongoing with a paternal relative? You're okay with placement there rather than have these kids split up?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure we were talking about the same person.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then I'll order that home study, I don't know how far along it is, but it be expedited. And I will order both parents to both Hairstrand and you a drug screen by 4 p.m. tomorrow at Care Express on Ross Osage Street in Amarillo. Let me ask each of you, Ms. Lopez, do you have your own transportation?
Yes.
All right, and do you know where the Care Express is?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. McClendon, do you have your own transportation?
Yes, sir.
And you know where that is?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the Miss Mincy, if you'd be sure that the forms get over there to pay for that. It may be too late to do it today, but just first thing tomorrow morning.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I will order that the parents, at least at this time, the parents' visitation with the children be separate and apart from each other. So,
And
okay, we will have the next hearing in this case, a status hearing on February 5th, 2024. Mr. McClendon, what that is, that's a fancy word to say that they're going to come up with a written plan of services to present to you. If you've got any problems with those, anything you think you shouldn't have to do or you're not sure you could do, that's the hearing that you'd want to bring that to the court's attention.
Judge, I'm gonna do everything it takes.
Okay, all right. And then again, I just want to reiterate this, that you have the right to ask for an attorney from now until this case concludes. So don't feel like you've said no, and if you change your mind, the court will consider whether or not you're entitled to a court-appointed attorney at no cost to you, okay?
Yeah, I like taking my butt whoopings from you, Judge. I'll continue representing myself.
Okay, all right.
Your
Okay,
Honor,
then. Yes.
we also ask for the reasonable efforts finding, both to prevent removal and to work back towards reunification as testified to in the hearing.
Okay, yes, I will make the findings that the department has made reasonable efforts not to remove the children, and they made reasonable efforts to try to place the children with family, and obviously tried to keep them together. So, okay, that will conclude this hearing. That's our last hearing for the day. I will see y'all back on February 5th. You can go on the court's online docket the day or two before February 5 because it will be by Zoom, just like today's hearing, and then we'll give you an exact time we're going to have that hearing. So we will stand in recess. Everybody have a good evening and have a good rest of your week.
Thank
You
you.
too, Judge.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank y'all.